All right, welcome back now to the KFYR Plus News Desk. And how often do you get stressed? Or maybe it's time to up that frequency because this may sound counterintuitive, but there's a growing body of research that says exposing ourselves to short, sharp bouts of stress is good for your health. It increases our resilience, can protect us against disease, and even help us live a little bit longer and healthier lives. Joining me right now to discuss this topic is Dr. Fahmi Farah, a medical expert and board-certified invasive cardiologist. Dr. Farah, welcome back to the program.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be back.
You bet. Well, obviously, too much stress in your life can lead to an early grave, but can too little stress also be a bad thing, Dr. Farah? Is there such a thing as good stress and bad stress? Well, we know there is bad stress.
Well, certainly there are differences between good stress and bad stress. And to define that, anytime we're working out, for example, we are stressing the body. That would be a perfect example of a good stress. And yes, that stress is necessary because it keeps our heart healthy. Obviously, research has shown that exercise is one of the best ways of keeping your heart healthy. And then bad stress would be stress from your job, something that you're dealing with every day, stress that's keeping you up at night, and stress that's like debilitating you. You're not finding the time to be able to go do the workout, which is the good stress. So yes, there's certainly a difference between good stress and bad stress. And while we want to expose ourselves to good stress, we do want to avoid the bad stress.
What are some common examples of hormetic stressors that people might encounter in their daily lives?
Every day, the two most common stressors that people will deal with every day, one is job. A lot of jobs are very stressful. It's like we revolve around our jobs, really. And the other thing is relationship related, your home life. How is
Mhm.
that? Um, and when it comes to the home stress, it could be family stress, like kids. It could be financial stress. So those are all the day-to-day stress that we deal with.
So, would any of these contribute to an increased resilience and protection against diseases? For instance, if you're one of those lonely Hearts Club members that you always get your heart broken, I mean, so would that be good for you to say?
I don't think that the stressors that I just mentioned are necessarily
Hmm.
good for you. Especially if it's something chronic, if it's something you're dealing with every day, then it can have a more of a bad impact on your health. However, I will say certain stressors like the need to go to work and to earn money, that's a good stress, I would say, just because it holds you accountable so that you maintain your routine. And your health insurance is like many is related to your job. So if you're going to work and that stress is taking you to work and you're working, you're eating healthy and you're maintaining your health insurance and you're going to the doctor to maintain that lifestyle and good health. So I would say no, it's not directly a good thing for your health, but indirectly, yes, because it's helping you to maintain your lifestyle so that you can live a healthy lifestyle.
Well, how can individuals determine that sweet spot for beneficial stress without, going overboard?
There's something called fight or flight response. That's a stress response that that's innately built in us. That's what has kept humans alive for many years. And the reason I mention that is because that is a good thing. If we didn't have that fight or flight response, we wouldn't survive many occasions. So to give you an example, someone is about to attack you, like an animal, or you're about to get into a car accident. There's a decision that needs to be made. That's a fight or flight response. Like, do you flee from that situation and rescue yourself, or do you head on, you know, uh,
Mhm.
embrace that impact? And that decision making capacity is what we're talking about. That good stress, because we have that ability, we can decipher the decision. And when we're under a stressful situation like that, it helps for us to be able to make that decision. So I hope that answers your question in terms of a good example of why stress is necessary. Because if we're never stressed, if we're always just relaxed, we wouldn't be able to survive those crucial moments of decision making and going the right way.
Right. So, how can people recognize when stress is, I guess, becoming harmful rather than it becoming beneficial to them?
If stress is keeping you up at night, for example, you're not sleeping, it's changing your mood, you're getting depressed, and also it's keeping you away from a healthy lifestyle. For example, because of stress, you're now debilitated and you're not able to go to the gym and work out. You're not able to spend the time, or you don't have the desire to eat healthy because that takes effort. And you're constantly anxious. Your heart rate is elevated, your blood pressure is elevated. Those are not healthy situations, because if that continues for too long, it will have a negative impact on your heart health. It puts you at risk of having things like heart attack and stroke. So yes, you do need to avoid those bad, stressful situations.
And I know that you mentioned it just a moment ago, but too little of stress can be detrimental to our health, yeah?
I completely agree. It's about a balance, like too little stress means you're too relaxed. And when you're too relaxed, you're just not motivated to do the things you need to do that's healthy. For example, if you don't have the urge to go work out, then you're not going to work out. You're just going to lay down on the couch if you don't have to, right? As humans, we need that motivation. We need that factor, something pushing us to do better. We need that purpose. And sometimes a little bit of stress gives us that purpose to take that next step and make us more healthy.
So, what are the potential risks of leading a life like that with minimal exposure to stress?
One of the things is if you have minimal exposure to stress, in other words, you're lacking a lot of motivation or, inciting factors that's pushing you to do better. We see like, people can actually get depressed, and that in itself can be a risk factor, because when you don't have motivation, when you don't have a purpose, then people tend to get into bad mood. They lose their purpose to living, and they get into situations where they're depressed. They lose their motivation to eat healthy. So it's a slippery slope.
Sure. Are there any specific age groups that might benefit from this?
I think this applies to all age groups. One example would be our elderly group. For example, a lot of the retired folks, they have less stress in their
Hmm.
in their lives, because their children are grown. They don't have very many obligations or responsibilities. They're for the most part relaxing, and so that's the group I worry about the most, because they tend to get into mental health issues like depression, and also they just don't have that reason to be healthy anymore. They lose that motivation. So that's one key group we need to be aware of. But it really is applicable to all age groups, even young adults, even adolescents. If they don't have a factor like a positive force that's moving them, they can get into these situations as well.
What safety consideration should individuals keep in mind when experimenting with hormetic stressors?
You just have to make sure that it's good stress and not bad stress. And if you are under constant stress, that's not good either. And so finding outlets is very important. Making sure that you're finding that balance. It's really all in moderation. That's what's good for the heart. So finding the balance of, like, making sure you're sleeping well at night, making sure you're taking the time to yourself to work out and de-stress and eat healthy. All of those are important. And on the other spectrum, if you are somebody who's retired or just don't have that many stressors, finding out a routine that works for you. I'm not saying go stress yourself out, but just finding a routine where you are living a balanced life, making sure you're going on those walks, staying in good communication with your friends and family. All of those are important.
Yeah, you hear the stories. In fact, I've got a personal anecdote myself of the folks that retire, and then a year later, or not even 6 months later, they just maybe they didn't have enough of will or good stress in their life, doc, because they just kind of went downhill. I hear many stories about folks that just they don't survive after retiring.
That is very true. I see that all the time, and they deteriorate. Even if they live their full lifespan, their functional capacity is just not the same. It deteriorates rather quickly. And it's a very good observation you've made, and we see that often in our clinical practice as well.
Yeah, I mean, there is something to be said about a little bit of stress for work. Sunday night, you got the big meeting Monday morning, you're a little bit stressed about it. Not so much that you can't sleep, but I think that's good for a person. I think it's good that you're always willing to make either A, yourself a lot better, or B, you're being challenged every day. And I think that has a lot to do with expanding as a human.
I completely agree. If we didn't have a little bit of stress, then we would have no need to wake up timely, eat that healthy breakfast, go to the gym, and then go to sleep on time and get adequate sleep. We just wouldn't because there's no need to. So we definitely need a little bit of stress as a driving force, but not a ton of stress because a lot of stress, chronic stress, could be bad for you as well.
That's right. Dr. Farah, thank you so much for the insights. And again, very, very nice to see you once again, okay?
Thank you for having me. It was my pleasure.